Have you ever noticed that the more you try to explain your intentions, the more people twist your words? The harder you fight for truth, justice, or respect, the more desperate you appear, while those causing the harm walk away untouched, unbothered, even celebrated. But what if I told you that silence, not explanation, is your most powerful weapon? That when you stop defending, stop chasing, and stop reacting, karma steps in. Imagine a snake biting its own tail. The more it struggles, the deeper it sinks into pain. But when it goes still, healing begins. Or picture your voice echoing through a mountain range. Whatever you send out, whether kindness or cruelty, eventually returns to you. That's how karma works. It's not just poetic justice, it's nature's law. The lies people spread, the harm they cause, the manipulation, they weave it all circles back always. So when someone wrongs you, you have a choice: fall into their trap and lose your peace, or step back and let karma write the final chapter. And trust me, the last point in this video, it'll shift your entire perspective. Let's dive in. Number one, when someone lies about you. Few things are more frustrating than being lied about. It feels personal, violating, and deeply unfair. Your first instinct is to defend yourself, to correct the story, set the record straight, and prove them wrong. But here's the paradox. The more you explain, the more suspicious you appear. The more you react, the more drama you fuel. And suddenly, even those who had no doubts begin to question your character. Why? Because you gave the lie more airtime than it ever deserved. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people don't care about what's real. They care about how you react. The person spreading lies about you isn't searching for truth. They're seeking control. They want to shake you, bait you, make you stumble into an emotional trap. If you lash out or over-defend, you become part of the very story they've spun about you. This is where Stoic wisdom shines. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." In other words, hold your own standard. Others may deceive, but your character, your response, is entirely within your control. Don't waste your breath chasing ghosts. Don't beg people to see you clearly. Let time and truth do what you cannot. Because here's the thing, lies have a short shelf life. Truth, on the other hand, never expires. Let me tell you about James. James was a quiet, hardworking guy. One day, a false accusation began circulating at his office. A co-worker, threatened by James's professionalism, started whispering a rumor that painted him in a terrible light. Within days, people looked at him differently. Meetings were tense. Lunch conversations stopped when he walked in. James wanted to scream, to tell everyone what really happened. But instead, he chose stillness. He kept showing up, on time, doing good work. He didn't gossip, didn't retaliate. And little by little, things shifted. One day, HR uncovered inconsistencies in the accuser's history. It turns out this wasn't the first time they'd lied. The truth rose naturally like oil in water. And James, he never had to fight because silence, paired with integrity, spoke louder than any defense ever could. So how should you handle lies? First, trust the long game. Lies are fast, but truth is lasting. Second, focus on your integrity. If you know who you are, the noise of doubters becomes irrelevant. Finally, let karma do what it does best. Return energy to its sender. What's spoken in shadows eventually comes into the light. Because in the end, those who lie will face their own echoes. And you'll still be standing, quiet, steady, and untouched. There are few wounds more soul-piercing than betrayal. It's not just the lie, not just the secret, not just the action. It's the collapse of a reality you thought was safe. Whether it's a friend who exposed your vulnerability, a partner who broke their promise, or a family member who proved loyalty was conditional. The sting of betrayal is one that echoes in the deepest chambers of your being. You don't just lose the person, you lose the version of them you believed in. And maybe more painfully, you lose the version of you that once felt safe around them. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it rewrites everything. The first instinct is always confrontation. You want to scream, to ask why, to make them feel what you're feeling. You want justice or at least acknowledgement. But here's the unfiltered truth. People who betray you have already rewritten the story to protect themselves. They've rationalized, rehearsed, reshaped the narrative so thoroughly that your pain becomes inconvenient background noise. If you explain, they'll gaslight. If you beg, they'll distance. If you cry, they'll call you dramatic. And this is where Stoic wisdom cuts through the chaos. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Betrayal, as gutting as it feels, isn't just pain. It's a purification. It filters out what's false, so what's real can finally breathe. Let me tell you about Sarah. She had a best friend of 12 years. They were inseparable through heartbreaks, career changes, and late-night phone calls filled with laughter and tears. But trust, once taken for granted, was quietly corroded. Arib began to notice strange silences in conversations, missed invitations, until one day she found the truth. Her friend had been sharing her private struggles behind her back, even going so far as to sabotage potential opportunities out of jealousy. The rage was primal. Sarah wanted to confront her, to make her squirm under the weight of her own betrayal. But instead, she paused. She took a breath, and she walked away. No explosion, no performance, no revenge. Her absence did the speaking, and the silence, it roared. Her ex-friend felt it, not the loss of the fight, but the loss of access. Sarah's quiet departure said what no confrontation could. You no longer have the right to witness my life. How do you respond to betrayal? Accept that some people are not who you thought they were. That's not your failure. It's their unveiling too. Don't explain. They already know what they did. They just don't care the way you hoped they would. Walk away, not in anger, but in clarity. The kind of clarity that says you no longer get the privilege of me. Real power is not loud. It's quiet, calculated, and free. You see, power isn't found in slamming doors or screaming matches. Power is in walking away without needing the last word. It's in cutting the cord with grace, not guilt. It's in understanding that closure isn't something they give you. It's something you decide. The betrayer. They don't lose your forgiveness, they lose you. A Stoic view, the art of emotional detachment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. For I seek the truth, but if someone is simply trying to deceive me or act without honor, they are not worth my energy." That's what betrayal reveals. Not just their actions, but their character. And once someone shows you their lack of honor, you don't owe them your outrage. You owe yourself peace. So ask yourself, who in your life has shown you their loyalty was conditional? Are you still holding space in your heart for someone who violated it? Are you giving your energy to someone who no longer deserves proximity? Because healing isn't just about moving on. It's about reclaiming your energy. It's about saying, I can grieve you and grow from you at the same time. And when you do that, when you truly let go with grace without bitterness, you don't just reclaim your peace, you reclaim your power. Number three, when someone insults you. Let's talk about something we all face sooner or later, insults. Whether it's a passive-aggressive jab, a sarcastic remark, or a direct attack, insults have one purpose: to provoke, to drag you down into a reactive state where your emotions take over. And if you fall for it, if you get angry, defensive, or flustered, you've given the insulter exactly what they wanted: control. But here's the truth. Responding to insults with anger doesn't make you strong. It makes you predictable. And manipulators love that, because the more they can predict your reaction, the more power they have over your emotional state. They want to poke the bear and watch it roar. So what do you do instead? You stay calm. You stay still. You let your silence do the talking. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic minds, once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And that wisdom applies perfectly here. If they act small, petty, cruel, don't match their energy. Elevate above it, because the moment you lower yourself to their level, you've already lost. Let me share a story. A guy I know, we'll call him David, was at a work event celebrating a big project. During the gathering, a jealous coworker tried to humiliate him in front of others by saying, "Wow, guess they're just giving promotions to anyone these days." The room went silent. Everyone expected David to snap back, but instead, David simply smiled, looked the coworker in the eye, and said nothing, not a word. That silence, it was louder than any comeback. It said, "You don't even deserve a response." And you know what happened? The coworker looked uncomfortable. He expected drama, but got dignity instead. So how do you handle insults? First, recognize that insults say more about the insulter than they do about you. People who feel the need to bring others down are usually battling their own insecurities. Second, understand that silence is strength. When you refuse to react, you rob them of the control they crave. And finally, carry yourself with quiet confidence. When you show that their words don't touch you, you take all the wind out of their sails. At the end of the day, the most powerful response isn't shouting or proving a point. It's showing that their words hold no power over you. Because when you stay composed, you keep your dignity, and that's a strength no one can take from you. Number four, when they play the victim. Let's talk about one of the most manipulative behaviors people use when they can't control the narrative. They play the victim. You know the type. They twist the story, omit their part in the conflict, and paint themselves as the innocent one. They don't want truth. They want sympathy. They don't want solutions. They want attention. And worst of all, the more you try to defend yourself, the guiltier you look. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people don't want to resolve things. They want to win in the court of public opinion. They want the spotlight, the pity, the poor me comments. And the more you try to explain your side, the deeper they pull you into their performance. This is where Stoic wisdom shines again. Epictetus once said, "To complain is always non-productive and never appropriate." When someone plays the victim, they're not seeking clarity. They're seeking an audience. Don't give them one. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman I know, let's call her Rachel, who worked with a colleague who had mastered the victim game. Anytime she was held accountable, she'd cry in front of the right people, spin the narrative, and make it seem like Rachel was the aggressor. At first, Rachel tried to explain. She brought facts. She tried to be rational. But every time she spoke, it was twisted into more proof that she was the villain. It was a losing battle. So one day, Rachel stopped. No more defending, no more reacting, just silence. And that silence, it was powerful. Without someone to push against, the coworker's victim act began to crumble. Over time, others noticed the pattern. The tears, the stories, the drama, always centered around her, and eventually people stopped believing it. So how do you handle people who play the victim? First, don't engage. The more you argue, the more you feed their narrative. Second, stay calm and let their patterns speak louder than your defense. Over time, people will see through the performance. And third, trust that truth doesn't need constant explanation. It reveals itself through consistency. At the end of the day, silence is your greatest ally. Let them talk. Let them spin. Let them play the game. Because truth, it doesn't need your defense. Time and karma will handle that for you. Number 5, when they ignore your worth. Let's talk about one of the most painful but ultimately liberating realizations in life. The moment you understand that someone is not valuing you the way you deserve. Whether it's in a relationship where your efforts go unnoticed, a friendship where you're always the giver, or a workplace where your contributions are overlooked. Being undervalued cuts deep. You offer support. You show up consistently. You extend kindness, loyalty, and time. And in return, you're met with indifference, neglect, or even subtle disrespect. It's a harsh truth, but here it is. The more you chase someone's validation, the more you teach them to devalue you. At first, it's tempting to try harder, to explain yourself, to prove your worth, to remind them of everything you've done. You tell yourself, if I just show them how much I care, they'll appreciate me. But that mindset leads to a trap. The more you give without being seen, the more they expect without gratitude. Your value doesn't rise. It gets buried under their complacency. Here's the truth. You don't need to convince anyone to see your worth. Your value exists regardless of who acknowledges it. And this is where Stoic wisdom offers powerful guidance. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." When you crave validation from those who refuse to give it, you become emotionally poor. But when you know your value and act from that knowing, you are rich, grounded, and whole. Let me share a story. There was a man I knew, we'll call him Daniel. He worked tirelessly at his job, often going above and beyond. His ideas improved the team's performance, and his leadership inspired others. But somehow his efforts were constantly overlooked. Promotions went to others. Praise was rare, and worse, some even took credit for his work. At first, Daniel tried harder. He spoke up in meetings. He took on more responsibility. He stayed late and helped others shine. But nothing changed. So one day, Daniel made a different choice. He stopped overextending. He stopped trying to be seen by people who chose to look away. And instead, he began building something of his own. 6 months later, he had a new job, one where his value was recognized, respected, and rewarded. And guess what? Some of those who ignored him before, they reached out, suddenly realizing what they had lost. But it was too late. Daniel had already stepped into a space that reflected his worth. So how do you handle people who ignore your value? First, stop begging. If someone cannot see your worth with their own eyes, no amount of explanation will change that. Second, redirect your energy. Focus on people, places, and passions that uplift you, not drain you. Third, trust the process. Those who truly matter will recognize your value without being prompted. And those who don't, They were never meant to stay in your circle. At the end of the day, being unseen by the wrong people is a blessing in disguise. It clears the path for the right people to find you. Your value isn't defined by their blindness. It's defined by your consistency, your heart, and your quiet refusal to be diminished. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to embody it. Number 6, when they try to provoke you. Let's talk about one of the most powerful and rare forms of emotional self-control, the art of not reacting. There will always be people who thrive on conflict, people who poke, prod, and push your buttons, not because they want resolution, but because they crave control. They want you angry. They want you flustered. They want to drag you down to their level where they feel stronger. And the moment you snap back, whether with anger, frustration, or even just an annoyed expression, you've handed them exactly what they wanted, power over your emotional state. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People who provoke you don't want clarity. They don't care about peace. They want to disrupt your energy. They want to break your composure so they can point and say, see, look how unstable they are. It's a trap, pure and simple. But here's the real power move: when you stay silent, when you remain calm, poised, and completely unbothered. You take back control. We don't just win the moment, you win the entire game. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your greatest weapon. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. You can't stop people from being who they are. You can't always prevent the provocations, but you can always choose how you respond, or whether you respond at all." Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Adam, worked in a company where one coworker constantly tried to provoke him. Every meeting, every interaction came with passive-aggressive jabs and sarcastic remarks. At first, Adam fell into the trap. He responded. He argued, he explained, but no matter what he said, the attacks continued. And worse, his reactions only made him look defensive. Then one day, Adam changed his approach. The next time the coworker tried to bait him with the truth, Adam just smiled. He didn't flinch, didn't defend, just nodded calmly and carried on with the meeting like nothing happened. And something shifted. The coworker tried again. More sarcasm, more attempts to poke holes, but with no emotional response to feed off, the attacks lost steam. Eventually, they stopped altogether. Adam didn't win by fighting, he won by refusing to play. So how do you handle people who try to provoke you? First, recognize the pattern. If someone always seems to rile you up, it's probably not accidental. It's a strategy. Second, stay centered. Your calmness, your indifference, your silence. That's what frustrates them the most. That's your power. And finally, remind yourself true strength lies not in domination, but in self-mastery. The loudest person in the room isn't the strongest. The calmest one is. At the end of the day, when you ignore those who seek to provoke you, you deny them the satisfaction they crave. And that is true power. Number 7, when they regret losing you. Oh, let's talk about one of the most profound lessons life teaches us. The moment when silence becomes louder than any argument, and regret becomes the echo of someone else's choices. There will be people who didn't see your worth when you were right in front of them. People who took your presence for granted, dismissed your kindness, ignored your loyalty. They assumed you'd always be there, that you'd always forgive, that your love, your effort, your consistency were permanent fixtures. But one day you stopped showing up. No dramatic goodbye, no final warning, just a quiet, resolute exit. And that silence, it's deafening. That's when regret kicks in. That's when they realize what they had is gone. Here's the hard truth. If someone truly valued you, they would never have treated you like you were disposable. Appreciation wouldn't come only after your absence. It would have been present in every interaction, every choice, every moment they had with you. But sometimes people only recognize your worth when you no longer give them access. And that is exactly why silence is your greatest answer. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. You don't need to list everything they did wrong. Let them sit with the echo of what they let slip through their fingers. This is where Stoic philosophy speaks volumes. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Walking away without bitterness, without revenge, without needing to be understood. That's mastery. That's freedom. Let me share a story. There was a woman I know, Olivia. She was in a long-term relationship, pouring her heart, her time, and her energy into making things work, but her partner, he became complacent. He stopped showing gratitude. He started taking her for granted, assumed she'd always be there. Until one day Olivia left. No yelling, no pleading, no endless conversations trying to make him see her pain. Just silence. At first he thought she'd come back. He even tested her with distant messages, half-hearted apologies. But she never responded. Weeks passed, then months, and eventually the reality hit him. She wasn't bluffing. She was gone. For good. By the time he truly regretted it, Olivia had moved on, happier, stronger, free. So how do you handle someone who regrets losing you? First, don't make it easy for them to return. If they only realize your value in your absence, they didn't truly value you to begin with. Second, don't explain your silence. Let it be their mirror. Let them sit in the consequences of their own behavior. And finally, hold your ground. True self-respect means walking away and meaning it. At the end of the day, the most powerful lesson you can teach someone is that once you're gone, and no apology, no regret, no flash of clarity changes the fact that they chose to lose you. Let them feel it, let them learn. Because silence, it's not empty, it's full of answers. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights.